gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I am your host, Data T, and this is my channel, The Good Guys. Guys, today's story comes out of Interlachen, Florida, and the title reads, 67-year-old woman shoots, kills armed intruder in Putnam County Sheriff Office says. Now, this is a very sad case, and it's a little bit unexpected, but we should all be expecting or be prepared to use our firearms in self-defense. Before we get into today's story, guys, if you wouldn't mind leaving a like, leaving a comment, subscribe, hit me on Twitter, we can talk, and let's get into today's story.
A 67-year-old woman shoots and kills an armed intruder in Interlachen. Reginald Best was shot and killed after entering the woman's home. No charges are being filed against the homeowner who shot him. News4 Jackson reporter Eric Avignac now joins us live from Putnam County with more on what happened there. Eric?
Kent Best was alive when deputies arrived on scene, but died here at the hospital from his injuries. Now, hours before his deadly encounter, deputies showed up at his house multiple times. Putnam County investigators say late Tuesday night, 64-year-old Reginald Best called 911 to report a crime he says was happening while he was outside his home.
911. Yes, my house is being robbed.
He told dispatchers that he was hiding in the woods in his backyard, and deputies went out there, checked everything out. Everything checked out. Nothing seemed out of place.
Sheriff DeLoach says deputies could not find Best, so they left. Then hours later, another call to 911, but this time, Best tells the dispatcher he is inside his home while men in costumes are outside his door.
What kind of costumes do they have on? Orange.
Again, we got out there. Nothing seemed out of place. Best was nowhere to be found.
Hours later, a third phone call to 911, but this time it's Best's girlfriend telling a dispatcher her boyfriend climbed out this window and took off running down the street with a gun in his hand. Just as deputies were arriving for a third time, they learned another woman called 911 to report a person shot. The call came from a home less than a half-mile away. Deputies arrived at the home and found Best had been shot by the homeowner after the homeowner said he forced his way in.
Now, before we hear what the sheriff has to say, guys, I wanted to stop it there because it sounded like this man was having some issues. 64 years old, okay? And he's called the police already a couple times. Obviously, if you call the police for a problem, you would expect that the guy who called the police would be there when they arrive. But he did that twice. Even the third time, when it was the girlfriend that called, he wasn't there. Then the call came through from the elderly woman who we already know he already died, so she had shot and killed him. I want to say this is sad, but this is not really the sad part, I think. What happens later adds to what I think is surprising on the individual, and that is this man who got killed. I'm going to stop it a couple more times, but let's see what this sheriff says.
She wasn't alone in the residence. She also had her 90-year-old mother, who's an Alzheimer's patient, in the home with her. So had she not had the foresight to arm herself, there's a high probability we may be investigating a double homicide right now where Best would have been the suspect.
Investigators believe that when Best took off running from his home, he likely ran through a wooded area to quickly get to the home where he was shot. Deputies say this is the handgun he had. Best was taken to HCA Florida Hospital in Palatka, where he later died. His neighbors, who have known him for decades, were shocked to learn what happened.
Just the best neighbor.
So would you say this was out of character for him?
Totally out of character for him.
So, guys, for me, that is the part that's surprising. Someone that you know for a very long time, she says herself that he was a very good neighbor, and he gets up and does this. And let's hear what another neighbor says.
Now, many of the neighbors we spoke with were in tears. One neighbor we spoke with actually took his dog, removed the dog from the house and said that he had been best friends with Bess for a very long time. Meanwhile, an autopsy will be performed to see if Bess was under the influence of illegal narcotics when he was shot. Coming up at 11, CY Sheriff Gator DeLoach says what happened today is a good reason why everyone should support responsible gun ownership. Reporting live in Putnam County, Eric Avignon, Channel 4.
Well, that is Florida, right? It's good that the sheriff was encouraging gun ownership. That's good to hear. But what we also heard from the reporter, not another neighbor, was that the neighbors were in tears. So you have an entire community that did weep for this man, okay? And he'll be missed. But guys, he went into another person's home at 64 years old with a gun. And what was he expecting to do? What was he expecting to get out of it? He lives in Florida. This state is getting ready to go constitutional carry. And he met an elderly woman with a gun. And it was the equalizer. She had a 90-year-old mother, which we just heard from the other sheriff. And what else was she to do? At night, somebody comes in through the house. She shoots. She protects herself and her mother. That is essentially what you're supposed to do. I find it sad because of what the neighbors have said. In some cases, in a lot of cases, we hear, especially from these young black children, when they get shot by the police, you'll hear their mom come out and say, "Oh, he was such a good boy," this and the third, which I sometimes think is bullshit. But in this case, it's a little bit different because he's an older gentleman. And this proves the case, guys. It just says to everyone to be ready. You know, I would have to say it should be, after all these stories, nothing surprises me now. It shouldn't. Nothing should surprise you. Once you take up that decision to arm yourself, you really do have to think in the back of your mind, you could shoot anyone in self-defense. And that means, guess what? That includes family. That includes children. That includes any woman out there. Everybody is or has the ability to hurt you. And it sucks to think like that, but this is the world that we live in. It is the reality, and that's what you need to understand. It is the reality that you live in. Just saw and read a case about how a father had to shoot a son. We covered on this channel a case in Virginia where a father had to shoot his son. Can you imagine that? No parent wants to outlive their children, much less shoot them. But in this case, guys, the 67-year-old woman, the daughter of a 90-year-old woman, is the hero. She is a hero. She protected her mother. She protected herself against a man who the neighbors thought was a good guy. And sometimes these guys, they go bad. Who knows what happened to this man? Hopefully, I'm thinking it was a mental case. You call the police twice, and then you get up and get out of the house. And he even said there were people in orange suits. It sounded like he had a breakdown, and it's sad. It really is. But We had people defend themselves. This is the point. Okay? And we heard quite, not, I wouldn't say shockingly, but we heard the sheriff make the case to be a responsible firearm owner. And that is something that we should all be, because good people carry guns. Good people have guns. Good people should always have them, because if good men do nothing, there will be no good guys.